Joining me now is Matt Johnson, who's the CEO of Race on the Agenda. Now, they work with communities impacted by systemic racism to help create policies and practices to tackle inequality. Matt, what did you make of, good evening, by the way, what did you make of Kemi Badenoch's speech this morning?
Yeah, I would have to say that I definitely strongly disagree with Kemi Badenoch's characterization of the public sector equality duty. There is nothing within the public sector equality duty that tells officers that they must believe false claims. The public sector equality duty tells institutions that they must think before they act, whether it comes to age, gender, race, sexuality. And we should be demanding more of that rather than less of that, and holding institutions to account around that rather than less accountability.
I mean, for a lot of people, this mentally they will go to the rape gangs, right? The Rotherham rape gangs and things like that, where race did play a role in a lack of police attention, that they were afraid to be called racist if they intervened, or if they believed these girls, if they started asking questions. So in that regard, does she have a point that actually it's about common sense, that it doesn't matter if you're brown or black, if you're breaking the law, then you need to be approached in the same way as anybody else would be?
I mean, we have seen throughout history, going back to the Stephen Lawrence case, as you've seen with Henry Novak, poor decision-making that has happened within the police forces. I think we can all agree that our police forces have not always acted in the best interest of the public. Yeah. So that is a failure. That's definitely a failure of judgment. That's a failure of leadership. But that does not necessarily mean that we need a complete bonfire of equality laws. That's a completely different thing. Having laws that protect people by their protected characteristics is very different to kind of the implementation and actual the judgment that is taken by police officers when they're not on the ground.
But what about the fear that some police officers have, that has been maybe trained into them, about being, overly favourative in certainly in the case of the Henry Novak situation? That was poor judgment, that was a terrible policing, and I think we can all agree with that, and Henry Novak's family would absolutely say that. But that a lot of the police had said, look, we're too scared not to. We're too scared to be accused of being racist if we immediately assume that the brown guy did it.
I mean, one thing that we cannot ignore, I mean, and I understand that there is a history of institutional racism within the police as well, and that is something that does,
and misogyny.
Yeah, exactly, and misogyny within the police. That's something that we cannot just put under the carpet. It was only a few months ago where we had the BBC documentary and Charing Cross, and we saw very viscerally the misogyny and the racism and all those really difficult and bad things that were happening within the police service. That one beyond the statistics, the statistics showed us those disparities, but we saw it. We saw it all very clearly on that documentary. So there are definitely issues, and the public sector equality duty, scrapping that and understanding those issues within the police is not the way to go. Really, it's just not the way to go. Throwing equality out the window when we know that there are still these misogynistic issues. There are still these issues when it comes to racism within the policing institution.
But to be fair, Kemi Badenoch has said that this is not about scrapping the Equalities Act. This is not about, she said it should be a shield, not a sword. That this isn't about, the Reform want to get rid of the Equalities Act, but Kemi Badenoch is saying this is not that. This is not what we want to do. What we want to do is, like in the situation with the Southport killer, that there isn't more slack cut for somebody, or saying, look, you're being racist by pointing out that he brought a weapon into school. You know, other people like the Nottingham killer, who the NHS were concerned that there was an over-representation of black faces in their mental health units. That sort of thing, it seems to me to be not an equalities issue but a training issue, that they're not being smart enough to say, well, actually, it doesn't matter if we've got too many faces of one colour in. If they need to be in there, they need to be in there.
Yeah, definitely. I think there are, as clearly in the Henry Novak case and in other cases, there was clearly questions to be made around policing judgment. But if we're talking specifically, I mean, Kemi has come out today speaking about the public sector equality duty, and the public sector equality duty does not, tell officers or different members of different institutions, whether they be in the NHS, to falsely believe wrong allegations when it comes to racism. So in terms of the legal framework, in terms of that equality framework, I just don't see any justification for that being scrapped when there is nothing in there that is leading to these kind of adverse results as well.
But do you think that then it could be a case of misguided people training people the wrong way? That there's just a misunderstanding of this guidance, of these rules, that has made people go, oh look, we've got to be really careful here, because that doesn't help anybody, right? It doesn't help the black community, it doesn't help women, it doesn't it doesn't help any of us if it's been inappropriately applied.
No, the application of the public sector equality duty, the right application of the public sector equality duty, would not mean that people are disproportionately impacted in those ways. The public sector equality duty is, again, what it's about is about making people think before they serve and before they establish institutions, which is really important given the gender inequalities, given the racial inequalities, given the issues of even around disability and other protected characteristics. It's really, really important that this is this remains in place, given that history. But that's a separate issue to individual judgment, whether they be within the NHS or whether it be of policing. But completely scrapping this legislation, I don't see how that helps.
Good to talk to you, Matt. I hope I get to do it again. Thank you very much indeed. Matt Johnson there, CEO of Race on the Agenda, working with communities impacted by systemic racism to help create policies and practices to tackle inequality.